She is as talented as she is humble. Ashley Ward, an Emmy Award winning director at ESPN. She joins me on the Honest Nothing podcast. I'm Bryan Fenley, do volleyball for ESPN. And this is a conversation where we're not only going to show a little bit about the business life of one Ashley Ward, but we're going to learn about her personal side as well. We've had a lot of her colleagues on. This is going to be a lot of fun, a chance to inspire other people, highlight women in the industry. And I know, Ashley, that you've seen a couple of these, so it was only a matter of time that we got you on. So glad to have you. Thanks for doing this.
No, Brian, I appreciate it. Like you mentioned, I've seen a bunch of my colleagues join you, and I've enjoyed watching them. So I'm excited to be here, and I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. And obviously, Ashley recently Forbes 30 under 30 in the sports category. So when I hear that, I think to myself, as we get this conversation rolling, Ashley Ward is immune to procrastination. I saw that in college you finished a semester early, and then you've done all of this before you're 30. How have you grown to basically stiff arm procrastination and do away with it over the course of the entirety of your life?
Oh my God. Well, first of all, I definitely procrastinate. That is for sure. No, I think growing up, it was kind of just instilled in me to work hard for the things that you want. Both of my parents kind of pushed me in that direction. And I think too, a lot of it is just the people that I've surrounded myself with, both in my family and work, who have motivated me to kind of pursue the things that I want and the goals that I set. To your point, like a lot of time and energy has been spent to get to these goals that I've been able to achieve. And I'm incredibly grateful for what I've been able to do. First and foremost, like my religion is very important to me. So I glorify God in everything that I do, and He's put me in the position that I'm in. And I think part of that too is just ingrained in who I am and who He made me. So procrastination, I definitely procrastinate outside of work, and there's moments in work that I do as well. But no, definitely a lot of off days spent working, overtime, holidays, stuff like that. So
And there are so many different sporting leagues that you're working with. You're obviously doing remote directing with ESPN as well as in studio work. So you've got a whole lot of versatility. And as you said, there's a lot that you do, the hard work that goes into your craft that say a lot of people don't see. We liken it to, say, like if a basketball player is in the gym when people are usually asleep, getting in those extra shots up. What is your comparison to that? Where actually you're putting in the work that's helping you, that people aren't seeing, but you are doing because you know it's the right thing to do.
yeah, it's a lot of time spent reviewing my games, reviewing my shows that I've directed. I have a lot of really great mentors in this industry. So throughout the week, I'll set up meetings with them and have them review my games. And it's people who have been directing for 15, 20 years who just have kind of mastered this craft, and getting their feedback and being able to implement it. My manager specifically, he's an amazing resource for me. So he watches a bunch of my games. And again, just watching everything back. And I also try to watch other networks as well and other directors that I don't necessarily have a relationship with. And I go through and just see, what did they do here? Is that something that I want to implement? I think the toughest part about this position is that 98% of it is subjective, and somebody will have an opinion on something that another person will say is not the way that they would do it. So a lot of it is filtering through that feedback. But I think for me, the biggest thing is just getting as much feedback as I can to try to take in the different areas that other people are implementing into their shows.
As you're getting that feedback when it comes to your shows and you're reviewing your tape, what about the feedback? Let's say, so you're watching your old game tape to glean information and insights and advice on how to improve. But let's say there was film of you in the studio actually directing. So not the actual game, but you in your habitat, if you will, with everybody that you're working with on a show. What is that side of Ashley Ward like?
Yeah, I definitely think my biggest thing is just trying to stay as even keel as possible. This industry has a lot of ups and downs. There are technical issues that will happen, or a show doesn't go the way that you want it to. And there's kind of a saying that a lot of people are like, we're not doing brain surgery, it's television. So like mistakes are going to happen. And I've been in a control room where people do kind of get a little high and it throws everybody else off. So my biggest thing is just trying to stay as calm and level as possible. The way that I direct is definitely my tone changes more than my level in terms of how I'm calling a game. So if something does happen and I need something to be adjusted, it's never yelling, it's never raising my voice past a certain point. It is definitely just a change in tone. So on top of that, I just try to keep it light and enjoyable. And I think a large portion of what this industry is the relationships with the people that you work with. So I try to make sure that the control room staff and even my camera operators on site, and when I'm doing a game, because a lot of what I do is Remy based out of Bristol, so it's a remote integration, trying to just have that human side to it, asking people how they are, joking around lightly, and being able to just kind of keep the mood light, because when you do get into a game, a lot of what is happening in front of you feels very serious, and it's nice to be able to keep kind of the environment light so that everybody's enjoying what they're doing. Because at the end of the day, sports are fun. It's supposed to be fun. People watching sports want to enjoy it because it's entertainment. So on our end, while being able to execute our jobs, we should also be enjoying what we do. So just trying to keep it light.
And clearly, it's what you're saying is all playing itself out, looking at what your body of work has been and what you're continuing to do. And as you're doing a lot of these games, I would think about it as this, like this comparison. Let's say there's a quarterback, and the more reps that he gets, the slower things happen, and he's able to take time and make the reads. Like when the first game or so, when you're doing things, at least if it was for me directing, it would be a bit of a blur, and I'm sure that you get younger quarterbacks, under center, and they've got all of this action happening defensively, and it's like, "What is going on?" So what would be the way in which you could relate to a quarterback in the sense of now that you've done all of these games that you find your mind able to slow things down when there is in the control room in a broadcast, there's always going to be that fun loving mass chaos, but in the chaos you have found the peace and the comfort of really fine tuning your game and things just slowing down a little bit so it's easier to operate and do what you need to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what happens. The more you do a sport, the more you do a show, especially with the same crew, everything just starts slowing down in front of you. And this past weekend was a great example. I had my first UFL game, and that league is very different. It's different than college football. It's different than professional football, with the root of it still being football. But you have a million mics that are open. You have more resources in terms of cameras. And this past weekend, things were moving very quickly for that first quarter. And then by the fourth quarter, everything starts slowing down. So I think you hit the nail on the head. It's all about reps, and it's all about putting yourself into these different situations and circumstances. And the thing about directing live television is that no matter if you're 2 years into your career or 40 years into your career, there's always going to be new things that pop up. There's technology that's constantly evolving, situations that you haven't encountered, rules within sports. And whether I'm 2 years into my career or 40 years into my career, there's always going to be something that happens that I haven't experienced. And so I think in terms of everything slowing down, like you said, that comes with reps. But I think what makes a good quarterback as well is the people that he surrounds himself with, his offensive line, his coaches, everybody who's supporting him. It doesn't matter if a quarterback is the greatest quarterback of all time. If the team that he surrounds himself with isn't good, it's not going to matter. So I think the people that I've surrounded myself with in the control room, and then again, all the mentors that I have, the people who are giving me feedback, they're allowing me to see things from 30,000 feet sometimes where I can't see it. And then sometimes they are on the ground with me and pointing out things that I'm not necessarily seeing. So the more conversations that I have with people who have that experience, the more they're pointing out things that I haven't necessarily seen yet because I just don't have that experience. So it's all a part of just the teamwork that goes into it.
Obviously, Ashley, the confidence is really important. People in this industry, they see your confidence, they feed off the confidence, and you need that level of self-belief. You mentioned your parents and how much of a role they played in your life growing up. How did they foster that self-belief that you were able to pick up and use from being a youngster to where you are now?
Yeah, I think from the beginning it was just the constant support from them, whether it was with soccer or choir or taking different lessons. I think I tried a million different things. I played volleyball and lacrosse and tried drums and piano. And I'm definitely one of those people where like I see something and I want to try it, and they were constantly supporting me through that process, whether I was good at it or not. So from them, just from the very beginning, supporting me, it kind of allowed me to grow my confidence, and then throughout my high school career, my college career, and now my professional career, I kind of just take what they've always instilled in me, which is that like the worst that can happen is you're not great at it and you just keep pushing forward. So to your point, in television and specifically in the directing role, there has to be a level of confidence that you have in yourself and in the production, because you have so many people listening to you. And so I think for me, it's always kind of been this combination of finding the line between confidence and humility, because that is a tough line to toe. You don't want to come across too confident, to where it becomes cocky, but then you also want to make sure that your humility is not coming across as if you're not confident. So I've always tried to find and toe that line between those two. And to me, that comes into knowing what I know and then knowing what I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that I am still learning. And that's, again, going back to who you surround yourself with. And then there's areas where I do feel like I have gained a lot of confidence and have kind of found my own way of doing things. And I think for those things that I feel confident in, I definitely try to step into those and then maintain that level of confidence. And the areas that I don't feel as confident, I rely on the people around me who do know what they're doing in those specific situations.
Where did you find yourself most confident when you were playing the drums?
Oh my gosh. I was so bad. No, I'm not even kidding. Like the hand-eye coordination with drums, I just never got it. Being able to like use the foot pedal and then also do two things with both hands, I couldn't do it. So then I tried piano and it was trying to use both hands and that didn't work either. So I went to singing, and that was where I kind of like lived in my last year of high school, was with choir. But the different instruments are hard. I did play viola. So that one I did play for like 6 years, and that one you do have to use both hands, but drums I just could not get down.
How do you think you're growing up around music and playing all these instruments? I know this is kind of like a far-fetched concept, and maybe there isn't a correlation, but
I already
as
know where
somebody,
you're going with this, if there
you know
is.
where I'm going with this.
Yes.
But how can the musical influence and inspiration that you have and the musical trained ear that you have for what sounds good, how could that actually parlay itself into what sounds good in a broadcast or using your background in music as a guide or a compass for what you're doing in entertainment?
Yeah, no, there's two sides there. I think the musical ear definitely helps when it comes to the sounds of a broadcast. Like I know when a mic sounds overmodulated. I know when a certain cut of music doesn't fit what we're going for. And like again, you rely on your audio operators for that. But I think having played instruments and been in choir, there's definitely like a little switch in my ear where it's like, okay, something doesn't sound right. And even if I don't know what it is, I'm able to tell that something doesn't sound right. And then I think one of the reasons why I love live production so much is that it takes me back to my days of playing viola and being in an
Ah.
orchestra. There was something about it, and I only played from like fourth grade through eighth grade, so it wasn't that long. But there was something about being in the middle of playing in an orchestra and realizing that so many different pieces are putting together what I'm hearing right now, and that my instrument with whoever's playing cello and who's playing violin and bass, all of those coming together is creating this beautiful sound. And I think when I think about live production, being in the control room and then having everybody who's out on site, you're directing, and you realize that nothing else can be happening unless everybody's involved. So the production and the on-air product that is going out is the culmination of so many different positions. And I was teaching a class not too long ago and broke down this like 10-second studio in bump. And I think I listed out that there was about 27 different people that worked on a 10-second clip that made it on air. And I think when you work in this industry and you're just kind of like going through the grind of a daily basis, you forget how much goes into what we do. And so for me, breaking that down for students who don't necessarily know what we do, it reminded me how much effort and energy gets put in by so many people. And I think that that just kind of brings me back to being in an orchestra, which is weird, but I think that's why I enjoy it so much.
I'm glad we brought up that connection because I like, as you know, Ashley, I like to dig deep and find correlations to people's childhoods. And oftentimes people will come on this conversation platform, a lot of ESPNers, and they'll say afterwards, after we finish recording, and they'll say, I think I just got a free therapy session, or I learned something about my life that I had no idea that it was like subconscious or unconscious, and you brought it into consciousness. So I take that
And
as I would say that's a compliment. And I
it
feel like
is.
yeah, and we're doing that right now. You had said, and you had been, and you have, and you've taught, and you're in a position to inspire. With that being said, you're also very humble. So you talked about treading that fine line between confidence and not allowing that to go over into cockiness. And I think you've done a really good job at that. But at the full front of where you are and where you stand in this industry, it's only understandable or easy to see why you would be inspirational to people in this industry, considering what you've done and the women that are seeing you, and even men. Obviously, I'm very inspired by your journey. Everybody is collectively inspired by you. How does that feel to you when you've got, obviously you have a huge following on Instagram, and you've done a lot on TikTok and big on on LinkedIn, and all of these, and your name continues to grow. How do you feel that resonates with you when you've got people that are gravitating towards you and see you for what you've already done, even with so much more to accomplish?
Well, I appreciate your kind words. I think for me, the first word that comes to mind is just grateful. I see where this industry is, especially for women in this specific role and women in this industry altogether, as well as other minority groups. And there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. And we've made a lot of really great strides. But I think for me, my goal is when I leave this industry to leave it in a better place than which I found it. And so the opportunities that I've been given, whether it's being promoted to director or the Forbes, like you mentioned, those are just opportunities to kind of bring a spotlight to a woman in this position. And so, again, just very grateful for the position that I have been put in, and grateful that God put me into this position and that ESPN kind of saw that potential in me and has given me the opportunity. But I think, if anything, what my goal is just to spread kind of the motivation to younger women to be in this role, and younger men. I've had a lot reach out to me on social media and just say, like, I didn't even know that this was a possibility. I'm looking into this now in my college career. And those things are what kind of drives me and motivates me. And I love getting those messages, because I was one of those young women, and there aren't a lot in this role specifically. And the limited number only just drives me more to want to kind of spread that representation.
What about your drive do you find comes from your parents?
Um, I mean, both of them were collegiate athletes, so I think a lot of kind of who they are is also instilled in just a different area of sports they were playing, and now I'm, I guess, producing sports. But both of them had career goals, and growing up, I got to see those things firsthand. And I think that's part of where my career goals came in, is that they never settled for something that wasn't what they were happy with. So I think a lot of that plays into how I've kind of positioned myself in my career, is just watching them growing up. But both of them were and are highly motivated people and want to kind of get to the best of the best in their specific positions. Um, I think that answers your
Yeah,
question.
no, it absolutely does. And to further what you're saying, how would you correlate your drive to impress them in what you're doing career-wise as a token and sign of your love for them and your appreciation for them?
Yeah, I think, I've never felt this pressure to impress them. I think like for me, the way that they are, it's just they're proud of me regardless of what I do. So there's never been this like, oh, I have to do this to get their approval. I think it was more just I've always just kind of separated those two things in my head. I have these goals and these achievements that I want to reach. And when I reach them, it's more of that satisfaction of going to them and being like, hey, I accomplished this and achieved this. And them just being genuinely happy. And honestly, they're happy with anything that I do as long as it's obviously a good thing. Um, but no, I've never felt this need to kind of impress them, I guess. It's more just their support has always been unconditional, which is amazing.
When are you happiest?
Oh man. Um,
Personal or professional lives?
yeah, I think professionally, anytime that I get to be in the control room doing a game, I just love that environment. I think one of the things that I love about this industry is the adrenaline rush that you get from doing live television. It's unlike anything else. I mean, I've jumped out of a helicopter before, and that's a different type of adrenaline, but I like if you're doing live television, again, that feeling of counting down from 10 to 0 to come on air, it's just this feeling that's undescribable unless you experience it. So I think being in the chair anytime is when I'm happy professionally. And then personally, I think this is always so weird because people ask me what my hobbies are, and my main hobby is walking. I just love walking. So I'll walk like 10 miles a day, and it's just me with my thoughts and no music or anything. I just am either thinking about what's happened in the day, meditating, praying, whatever comes to me kind of while I'm walking. But I really enjoy just being outside and walking.
You said the walking, and it's only clear by your love of travel that you like to sightsee. And so as you're walking and you said it, you're living in the present moment and taking account of your surroundings. You said you jumped off a helicopter. I also saw this picture of you, like, way up on a skyscraper, and you're, like, sitting on this ledge, and I'm like, "How do you do that?" Like, I mean, the amount of beautiful backdrop that you have to feast your eyes on in a downtown city there was a thing of beauty, I'm sure, but again, it goes back to you appreciating your surroundings and loving sightseeing even if you're going on a walk. Why is that so important for you to take note of what's around you at all times?
Yeah, I think living in the present is the only way to kind of slow time down. I know that sounds weird,
Yeah.
but life moves fast. And honestly, I was in sixth grade and I had this kind of epiphany watching Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And as a 12-year-old, I just realized that like life moves really, really fast. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm already going to middle school. And now I think I found like the key to that is just kind of taking in everything around you. So whether it's traveling, whether it's sitting on top of a building in New York, I know my mom like doesn't love that I do that, but she's like, she's like, why? But for me, like, I think in those moments, again, going back to adrenaline that you get kind of allows time to slow down. So anytime that I have the opportunity to experience something new or see something new, it just adds to time, I guess, slowing down, which again sounds weird, but
No, but I also know, and you mentioned that kind of juxtaposition there. I also noticed something about you where you mentioned your love of adrenaline, but I also feel like that is when you're in most of a state of tranquility and peace within yourself. Why do you think that is? That which would be emotionally, or adrenaline, burning within you is actually when you're most at peace and at ease with yourself.
I don't know, that's a deep. I mean, you said something about therapy sessions. This really might be a
But
therapy session.
do you see the
Yeah,
correlation where, like, it's like
yes.
you find that you are yourself, your most comfortable self, when you are doing these
Yeah.
exciting adrenaline-filled activities?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I definitely, after experiencing chaotic moments professionally, I think I thrive in chaos. And I just enjoy it because I think that it allows me to problem solve, specifically on the professional side. In terms of like sitting on top of buildings, I think, or seeing new things, it just makes me, I guess it's like an appreciation for life. Which I mean, it sounds weird, but like sitting on the edge of a building and knowing that, I mean, one gust of wind and
Yeah.
you're gone. Like it almost makes you think like, wow, life really is momentary and it's fragile. And so for me, I think I just reflect in those moments on what life is. And I think when you think about it from that perspective, there is a peace there. I don't really know why it brings peace, but I think just thinking about life as a whole in those moments brings peace.
Would you consider yourself like an old soul? I know I am. So just considering
Yeah.
what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I've I think because I'm in my head all the time, I don't feel that way. I feel young, but I mean, my mom tells me that all the time and tells me like since I was young, it's always kind of been that way. And I think like having these conversations and saying things out loud, I can understand why I maybe come across that way. But
Yes.
then, like again, I spend so much time in my own head and on these walks and just thinking. I think sometimes it's split between like in my thoughts, I feel like an old soul, and then I'll be like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm still a teenager, which I think a lot of people can relate to that. You never really grow up. But yeah, I guess outwardly, yes, I could see myself being an old.
How often, as you wrap up this conversation, Ashley, how often would you take those thoughts and are taking those thoughts and write them down? Maybe it's in a journal or just something that you can go back to and read if you'd like.
See, I hate writing. I'm not a writer. Um, Especially like writing by hand, my hand starts cramping really fast. So I never write anything down, and I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I tend to lean towards a good thing because I think my thoughts are just moving so quickly, and I'm thinking about so many different things that maybe there's things I don't need to reflect on. And like I think a lot of what my thought process is just working through things. And as I work through them, I kind of just like throw them away as I'm done. So going back and reflecting on them, I think would probably just re-trigger thoughts that I've already kind of processed.
But here's the thing, as we conclude, the way that you think, and because you're thinking about so much, I think with your job and how much you have to process so many things at once, the processing speed of your brain, that probably comes in handy
Yeah.
as a director. So in the end, where your thoughts go and the speed of which they come actually sets you up to be a better director. That's what I see from that. And as we make that connection from something like that to your professional life, I can clearly see that. Ashley Ward, Emmy Award winning director at ESPN. She is a shining light in the industry, and it is such an honor to be able to go places, Ashley, that maybe you didn't know we were going to go. Maybe you thought we would. I know some of your colleagues were like, "Hey, this might go to beyond just business stuff," and I appreciate it. It was a really enjoyable conversation.
No, thank you, Brian. This was great. Let me know where I need to bill for the therapy session.
Yes.
Thank you for this. We covered topics that I haven't thought about, so I appreciate you. This was really fun.